Two and a high chair for smoking. Chapter 3. Back on the Rail. Part 1. It was if I had never left. The only difference was Sean. After one Saturday shift together, a valuable life lesson began to sink in. Never tell the boss to hire your friend. I hadn't planned on coming back, of course, but that was a moot point. I was back. Things hadn't worked out. One by one, servers asked me if I could talk to Sean. He was my friend, they said. He would listen to me, they said. It would be better that way. Sean forgot to vacuum upstairs before he left last night. Could you tell him that he has to do that? Sean didn't even wash half the coffee pots today. Could you remind him that's part of his job? I tried. I really tried. But Sean didn't take it well. It was going to be a long December. Part 2. Christmas came early to the mall. It always did. Halloween pumpkins were still rotting in the garbage bins when the first red and green decorations went up. The Muzak station started playing Christmas carols as the autumn leaves blew in the wind outside. Stores hiked their prices for a week or two before slashing them to 10% above the original price, and then posting large Christmas sale signs everywhere. In the restaurant, Christmas was the busiest time of year. Every shift was a hurricane of potential disasters. A toilet might get clogged up. The kitchen could run out of something, causing a panic. People might argue over who had come up the stairs first and had the right to put their name at the top of the list. Eaters became impatient when they had to wait longer than usual for food. Tempers sometimes flared. On occasion, I reflected that some of these assholes were not embodying the holiday spirit. They deserved a lump of coal in their stocking, or perhaps in their rectum. But I couldn't always blame people for being in a bad mood. One frenzied afternoon, a man on crutches somehow got up the stairs. When he finally got to the top, the crowd of people waiting for a table shot me full of dirty looks. "Don't you guys have an elevator?" The man on crutches looked at me incredulously. I apologized, as I always did, took down his name, and went off to clean a table. As I scooped up some cutlery and glasses, I heard him cry out in desperation. Apparently, he was looking for the bathroom and discovered that it was up 2 more sets of stairs. He had leaned his crutches against the wall and started crawling up to sections 6 and 7. I stopped what I was doing and ran over to help him. The man looked up at me and shook his head in disbelief. "You guys really need to get an elevator in here." It was Christmas time again. Part 3. And then it was over. After Boxing Day, business went off a cliff. People had bought their presents, returned unwanted gifts, and were now waiting for the credit card bills to come in the mail. Seasonal staff would soon get their pink slips. They knew it was coming. One afternoon after Christmas, I was busy trying to look busy. The boss approached me and said, "Tell Lori to get us some coffee. She can take over the front for a while." He was smiling. Tell Lori to get us some coffee? What the fuck? A few minutes later, we were in a booth upstairs. The boss was upbeat and enthusiastic. I couldn't understand it. And then came the pitch. He wanted to make me permanent full-time host with as many hours as I wanted. If I went to college, he would arrange the schedule around my classes. I was stunned. I have a lot on my mind running this place, he said. I don't need the stress of worrying whether the host is going to up and quit on me. I want someone who will be dependable. If I agreed to his terms, I would get a 20% raise, plus an increased share of the servers' tip-outs. It sounded great. There was only one problem. The boss only needed one full-time host. Sean hadn't worked out. The boss said, shaking his head sadly, his hours would be slashed, and it would be made clear he should find work elsewhere. The boss hinted that he would probably bring his wife on board as a part-time hostess. I told him I needed to think about it. Keep this between you and me. Don't tell any of the servers how much I'll be paying you, or they'll all be on my back. I promised. What did he want to talk to you about? Asked Laurie with great curiosity. We were in the staff room, and I could still hear the boss's words in my head. I mumbled something and changed the subject. Sean was my best friend. How could I sell him out? I said yes the next day. Part 4. The lunch rush, such as it was over. There had been no waiting list. We were at about half capacity, and most tables were either eating or getting ready to leave. We closed Section 1, and Fran went on her break. I was next. I put in my order and cleaned a table to kill some time. Kelly, one for non-smoking, came up the stairs. I sat him at table 15. He was happy to get a seat along the rail, but there wasn't much to see. The mall had shed its holiday skin. The fake plastic trees and tinsel were all gone, stuffed into a crevice somewhere until next Christmas. The mall had emptied out too. Time passed slowly. Steve, your order's up. Fran came to the front. 30 minutes of freedom awaited. I went to the kitchen pass bar. Looking through the space under the heat lamps, I could see Sukhjinder, the oldest line cook. She had been sick for 2 weeks. The holidays were too busy for anyone to take any time off, so she hadn't. Her flu was sticking around, unwilling to call it quits. Suddenly, her body convulsed, and she let out an explosive sneeze, really putting her back into it. I was sure I saw 1,000,000 mucus particles form a cloud above the flat-top grill, hang there for a moment, and then slowly descend, like a mist, onto the hot, greasy surface. She wiped her nose with one hand and started making a ham-on-rye sandwich. I looked at the stack of pancakes under the heat lamps, waiting for me. I was hungry. I had been hungry. Sukhjinder! But what more could I say? I knew the score. We all did. It was the way things were. She shrugged, muttered something, and wiped her fingers on her apron. I picked up the plate of pancakes and poured some maple syrup over top. Be like Buddha. Empty your mind. Focus on the good. A big raise, my pick of hours, and guaranteed employment into the future. They were all in the bag. Life wasn't bad. In the staff room, I sat down and began to eat. The pancakes were warm, and the syrup was sweet. Not bad at all. No tables came in after my break, and I got off a little early. Happy New Year. Part 5. It was cold and slushy outside. My shoes were soaked, sinking into the wet snow on the sidewalk with every step. My feet were wet and freezing. The sky above quickly faded from gray to black. The walk home always seemed longer on evenings like this. The bowels of January. There was a bus stop ahead, but of course no bus went by my house. As I got closer, I could see a girl sitting on the bench. I recognized her. We had gone to high school together and talked once or twice. She was plump but had a pretty face. In her lap was a handbag with the words, "Mean people suck," emblazoned on the side. I remembered her name, Ella. She looked at me and I stopped. "Oh, hi." "Hi. How's it going?" I wasn't very good with small talk. "Oh, today has been..." She hesitated at first, but then it all spilled out. The day had been a nightmare. She worked at a lousy shoe store in the mall. There were always problems, but that day had been worse than usual. Gripe City. Most complaints were from people returning shoes they had bought as Christmas presents. They were crap. The returns bin overflowed with new shoes that were already falling apart. Everyone had demanded a refund, and the manager blamed her for not trying harder to get customers to accept an exchange. Something about managers in the mall, I thought. It attracted a certain breed. Ella needed someone, anyone, to vent to. I was there. "It was like that all day," she complained. I commiserated with her. "Yeah, working at the mall sucks. But at least we didn't get fired right after Christmas." The bus came. "This is me," she said. "Thanks for listening. You must think I'm a total basket case complaining like this." "No, you should hear me talk about my job sometime. I've got to get out of that shithole." Ella got on the bus, and I watched it pull away from the curb to the wet sound of slush being crushed under its tires. A few days later, I stopped by the shoe store after work. A few scattered couples and post-Christmas shoppers drifted through the mall like ghosts. I passed an aromatherapy shop. There were no customers, just one of the security guards talking to the young girl working at the cash register. Good luck, Todd. Down the escalator I went. The shoe store was on the right. I could see Ella talking to another girl, a coworker. I went in and we talked. I was nervous, but tried not to show it. I asked for her phone number. There it was. It was out. I'd done it. Ella tore off some receipt paper from the printer and wrote her number on it. She handed it back to me and smiled. I walked home with a spring in my step. Part 6. I guess they're called toonies. I don't know who came up with the name for the coin that replaced the $2 bill. The dollar bill had been replaced with a loonie, a coin that featured a loon when I was still in elementary school. Now, years later, people's pockets were about to jingle a little more. It'll be good for tips, said Laurie. People think of coins as spare change. Someone might leave $1.50 as a tip because they don't want to drop a 2. But if it's a coin, they'll be more likely to leave it because it doesn't seem like much. That was the consensus, and by and large, she was proved correct. Not always, of course. Norma pointed out that cheap bastards like Richard Price, one for smoking, fast if you can, were just as likely to hold up a shiny new toonie and ask for change. And she was right. Tipping out at the end of a shift became a bit more inconvenient for the servers. They counted their tips, calculated 15%, and stuffed that amount into a small envelope. On the way out, they put it under the lid of the safe behind the cash register. With the $2 bill gone, more coins had to be stuffed into those tiny little envelopes. They tore easily. The boss collected them when he came in each day. There wasn't much space under the lid, so most mornings it rested on a small mountain of tip-out envelopes. Sometimes one fell out and got lost behind the safe. I found them there occasionally, like hidden Easter eggs. The boss didn't seem to notice when one was missing. After making sure no one was looking, I would pick up the small envelope and slip it into my pocket. Being a host didn't have many perks to speak of, but there was that. Part 7. It was late, and the buses had stopped running. The night air was freezing. I could see my breath as I walked down the street with my hands in my pocket. I didn't care. My mind was back in Ella's room. 10 minutes earlier, I had opened up the basement door, ever so carefully, and crept out into the dark night. Not a sound. She lived near the top of a hill, about an hour's walk from my house. Her bedroom was in the basement. She liked to paint and kept some of her work there. My favorite one was a painting of a small group of naked forest nymphs dancing around a tree. The room was a little cold, but she had an electric blanket. We put it to good use. "Don't leave just yet," she murmured, snaking her arm around me. The rules were clear. I couldn't sleep over. Her dad would kill us both. But I could stay late and walk home. I could still smell her perfume and feel her warm body as I gingerly walked on the icy sidewalk. I turned onto the main street and walked down the hill. My chest was a little sore. She liked to bite. I had had a few relationships in the past, but none had been very physical. This was different. This was fast. I felt like a switch had been flicked on. All I wanted to do was smell that perfume and explore every inch of her. I had to wake up early the next morning. I would be tired, but that was okay. I was quickly learning that being tired could feel pretty good, like I had accomplished something. Exhaustion could be invigorating. In my mind's eye, I could see us in her room, the electric blanket, the paintings against the wall, and her voice, just above a whisper, urging me not to leave. The night was dark and freezing, but I no longer felt it. Part 8. The daily special board was situated at the front of the restaurant, next to the cash register. It was the first thing people saw when they came up the stairs. On any given day, there were 2 specials scrawled on the board. Chicken strip burger, $5.95. BLTC, bacon, lettuce, tomato, and cheddar, on your choice of bread, $5.45. Both served with your choice of French fries, soup, or salad. There were other specials. The line cooks had a book full of ideas. But at the beginning of each shift, when I peered through the space under the heat lamps and asked what the specials were going to be that day, it was a good bet that one of them would be the chicken strip burger or the BLTC. At the bottom of the board was room for a quote of the day. It became my thing, something I actually took time contemplating each shift. I hated my uniform, especially the drab green vest and clip-on tie. I never felt good in that wretched garb. In retaliation, I tried to be as creative as I could when I wrote on the special board. There were times it got reactions. Some people might recognize the lyrics and hum the next part of the song. Or pause, look at the words, and smile. There were chuckles, but not always. "That's bullshit," scowled a man when he saw what I had written one day. "That's total bullshit." I looked at the words on the board, not quite sure what had upset him. I had written a line from a poem that I remembered reading in high school. "We are what our children swear they'll never be." I had always liked that line. Sandwiched in between the daily specials and the quote of the day was a simple admonishment, something so self-evident, so obvious that it shouldn't have even needed saying. No outside food or drink allowed. It buggered the mind that some people couldn't wrap their heads around this concept. I once saw a woman come in with a full tray of food court slop. The boss stopped her. "That hot dog and fries isn't going to pay the rent here," he said firmly. "I'm just going to join my friends," she protested. "They're eating here." The boss sent her on her way. She couldn't understand, of course. Some people were just tacky. Who would bring food into a restaurant? Working in customer service really lowered my opinion of the human race. Every day seemed to bring new levels of mindless douchebaggery. Other people were simply cheapskates. A man and a woman came in one morning and ordered 1 coffee and 1 water with their breakfast. After drinking the water, the man surreptitiously poured some coffee into the glass and cupped it with his hands to conceal the deed. Over the course of the meal, Amy saw him pick up the coffee pot and furtively fill the glass several times. When she charged them for 2 coffees, the couple protested that they had only ordered 1. Of course, it was up to me to explain that they had been caught. I may have poured a few drops into the water to get a bit of caffeine, okay? But you can't charge me for a coffee when I didn't order one. I'm sorry, sir, but the server saw you drinking the coffee. So she charged you for a cup. The man and the woman were both dressed professionally. They probably worked at the real estate office on the first level. They could afford 2 coffees. But no, the man was having none of it. He looked ready to froth at the mouth. I knew what was coming. Are you the manager?